Hey everybody, got a BatRep for you. Flames of War V4. It's been a while since I played Flames of War, and boy, I'm pretty excited. I had a couple little test plays of some of the new V4 rules, but this is my actual first game since getting the rules like a month ago or whenever it was. But it's going to be a 1250 point valued game. It's going to be 1st Armored Division for the Americans, going up against the 26th Panzer Division, my favorite, in Italy. Of course, this terrain is not for the Italian campaign. Once again, I'm playing with Italian campaign forces with more of a Northern Europe type of terrain layout, which is okay. Basically, I'm going to test out the rules, give you my impressions about the new V4 rules at the conclusion of the BatRep, and maybe even give you some tidbits here and there how some things have changed. I've got the forces deployed, I've got everything laid out, and the terrain's laid out. Everything is good, and we'll get right into the game. But let's look at the forces first of all. Take a look down here. Get the camera down so you can see. And again, this is downloaded from Battlefront's website, the Forces of War application, which is fantastic. You can generate your army lists, save them for later, and of course print them out. Look at all this goodness, all the special rules that come into play, and these are updated for version 4. As you can see right here, the special rules are updated, which is very nice. Again, this is late war, so I'm not using the mid-war cards and all that fancy stuff that they're also releasing. But American Forces, 1,250 points. It's the 1st Armored Division. This is basically one formation in this force, and it's a mechanized company, basically. Excuse me. They've got 2 armored rifle platoons, as you can see right here. Full accoutrements. They got this one up here has 3 half-tracks, M3s as well. There's a light tank platoon of Stuarts. There is a tank platoon of 3 Shermans. And there's some M7 Priests, 3 strong on the tabletop. So you got your artillery, you got lots of infantry, you've got the half-tracks going on, all kinds of good stuff to test out the rules with. And my favorite tanks, of course, the Stuarts. There's 4 of them. Now here's the Germans. This formation is a Panzergrenadier company. It's basically an infantry company. It's got 2 platoons of Panzergrenadiers of 6 teams strong plus command. They have a heavy weapons platoon, which is made up of 2 stands of MG42s and 2 stands of 8cm mortars. And you also notice in the new version 4, you don't use the command teams anymore. And this observer won't be used either if you don't want them. If you have any observers in your force, you can use a maximum of 1 of them, and you represent them on the tabletop, which I've done. I got an anti-tank gun platoon of Pack 40s. I haven't played with them in a long time, so I gotta try them out. 2 of them. Again, they don't actually come with a command team anymore. You just pick one of the Pack 40s to represent the command. Again, that's V4 rules changes. And I got a Panzer IV platoon, Panzer IV-H, 4 of them. And I got Panzergrenadier platoon. It's 4 strong. They come with 3 half-tracks, and it does have a command team. And finally, we have some recon. I bought 2 231-8 rads. I got 2 of them, but they're not going to come into play in this scenario because of the deployment and what I've had to hold back in reserve. Unfortunately, I had to put them in reserve. So yeah, that's how that turned out. And we look back at the layout here. Again, it's a 6x4 table as usual for me. These little red markers, there's 2 of them. They are the only objectives in the game. The American player placed them in this sector of the tabletop. This corner, I should say. So you can see the objectives. And here we got a blown out 88. And up there's a little stack of boxes. You can see up there, that's the objective marker. But I'll leave those red discs on so you can see it throughout the game. So they're the only objectives. The Germans deployed over in this side. Over here, they got a platoon of Panzergrenadiers with an attached heavy machine gun. They also have their mortars down here. There's 2 of them. They're the 8cm mortars. They are a separate unit. The 2nd MG42 I have in reserve. It is attached to the 2nd Panzergrenadier platoon. My command HQ is back here, and what used to be the 2IC is with him, but in version 4 he counts as just a normal rifle unit, so that's all that is. And these guys are hustling up the road to get into position in their first turn. The rest of the platoon is up here dug in around the objective. You always start the game in foxholes, as it's called in version 4. Pretty good. Saves a lot of time rolling for things. And the deployment edge is way over here, this corner of the table. That's the Americans. They actually can't deploy in the whole corner. Just this little sector back here, actually. And they've got a platoon of 3 Shermans deployed. They've got one of the platoons of armored infantry deployed, some of which are on foot, and the others are up here in these 3 half-tracks. They're hoping to hustle around this hill and get into this position, I think. And finally, the M8s, or the M7s, the priests are way back here, getting themselves ready to do some bombarding. You can't see them a little too far away, but that's where they are, in that little hayfield back there. And that's about it. They have an observer up here. He's probably going to hustle into this building and get into that upper floor so we can see this area, call down some fire. The Germans also have their observer. Where is he? Oh, he's deployed in this building over here, I think. Yeah, he's in the top floor. He's looking out. He's in tall terrain, so he's going to see over most of this terrain. And again, he's going to be calling down the fire from the mortars, which are dangerously close to the front and where the Americans are coming from. First turn goes to the Americans. They will be moving first. Now, in this game, the Americans will have reinforcements, and they will be coming on this edge right here. 16 inches in from this corner, I believe, something like that. Well, they're coming on in this area. This is currently undefended. But they don't roll for that until turn 3. They roll a d6. They need a 5+. On the turn after that, they roll 2d6, again needing 5+. And the turn after that, they'll roll 3d6, needing 5+, and so on and so forth. And every 5 they roll brings on a unit. It basically works the same way with the Germans, except they get theirs immediately. It's called immediate reserves, and they'll roll 1d6 in turn 1, needing a 5 to bring on 1 unit. The next turn, turn 2, they'll roll 2d6. And the turn 3, they'll roll 3d6. And every 5 on each dice brings on up to 1 of their units. Here's some of the reinforcements you can see over here. I got deployed next to my giant dice. Here's the American ones. They got their Stuarts and a platoon of armored infantry ready to come on the board starting on turn 3. The Germans over here have their Panzer IVs, their 8-Rads. They got a Gepanzerte platoon over here in their half-tracks, and a full Panzer Grenadier platoon as well. Yeah, that's what they got waiting to come on. And also, these Pak 40s are in ambush. It's a unit of 2. They can be placed anywhere on the table, no closer than 4 inches to any enemy unit, or closer than 16 if they're out of line of sight of the enemy. So that's the situation, folks. Breakthrough scenario. And that's what the table looks like so far. I hope I helped you describe the situation. But I'm going to throw up some more videos later on and piece them all together for you, and hopefully you'll get a nice BatRep. Give you some idea how the version 4 works and my impressions of it all. Okay, folks. See you for turn 1. Folks, interesting. I finished turn 1 for both sides. Americans went first, and as predicted, they moved up their platoon of Sherman tanks, heading towards the direction of these German mortars, hoping to take them out. They were ineffective with their fire, didn't get any hits. They're basically moving, using their stabilizers, so they're penalized when they move and shoot. Their infantry also moved up in this area. They're also over here, so they're out of command currently. The entire unit is pinned as a result of some return fire put on them by the infantry, the Panzer Grenadiers, the Germans, which are pretty much dug in currently. They put down a lot of fire on that unit advancing in the field. These infantry are considered concealed because of the hedges. This is otherwise flat terrain, these fields. But those hedges are kind of concealing them, giving them a little bit of protection as they move in on the positions of the Germans. Interesting, however, there is a sloped elevation here, which the Germans have a MG42 set up, heavy weapon, and it is able to see over these hedges, so that's wide open. Unfortunately, they didn't concentrate their fire on these advancing infantry. Instead, putting all their fire down on an observer that's located on the top floor of this building, looking out that window. Ineffective. Didn't manage to score any hits, unfortunately. The German mortars also put down fire on that same position. Again, unable to hit him. They even attempted putting smoke down on the observer specifically. Again, ineffective. However, as I said before, these Americans are pinned as a result of all the hits scored. One interesting thing that happened, the Germans did manage to bring in their immediate reserves right from the get-go on this area over here. And in this case, it was 4 Panzer IV H's moving in on the flank and surprising this little American force here that's trying to outflank me. Took out one of the M3s, took out 2 of the M3s actually. You can't see one, but behind this big cloud is another M3. Yeah, I think they lost 2 teams of infantry. Actually, one of them was a bazooka, I believe. No, they lost an MG team. They also lost an infantry team. And that's about it. They lost 4 teams in all from this little attack in here. So yeah, that was pretty devastating. But fortunately, the HQ for the Americans is alive. He survived. He hopped out of his destroyed Jeep, which is right there. It's unfortunate for the Americans. Didn't expect reinforcements for the Germans to come on so quick, especially tanks. But that's the situation, folks. Very interesting. It's exciting right from the get-go. And part of the requirements of this game for the Americans is they have to be within 16 inches of an objective or they lose. If the Germans start a turn and there's no Americans within 16 inches of the objective, one of them, there's one right there, the Germans win. And it's not the case. They do have Americans up in this position and over here as well with the half-track. So they are close enough. The Americans have to keep the pressure on. All right, folks, let's go to turn 2 and see what's up next. Flames of War, V4. All right, just finished turn 2 for both sides, the Americans and the Germans in that order. Basically, the Americans, as we can see down here, next to the cat, they did move their Shermans up a little bit further, took some more shots at these dug-in mortars for the Germans. The Germans, in return, put down some more mortar fire on these advancing Americans. So those Americans, this unit, this platoon, which is located right here and over here in these woods as well, they're basically broken up a little bit. They are pinned. They did take some casualties as well. And also this Panzergrenadier platoon has been putting down some pretty effective fire as well on these advancing Americans, also causing some casualties. But the mortars are paying off. They're holding their ground. The enemy tanks are right there. I don't know how long they're going to last. The one to the left, the furthest one, did put down some mortar fire, some smoke rounds, basically blinding the American observer, which is in the top story of that farm building right there. So he can't see out of that thing too well. So that's the case there. This part of the American platoon did pull back. They were in their half-tracks. They got ambushed, basically, and I don't mean rules-wise. Basically, the Panzer IVs came on in the turn previous and put down some devastating fire and hit them hard. It took out their half-tracks, caused some casualties, and forced these guys back into the woods. And their half-tracks that were not damaged pulled back as well. So that's the situation here. Boy, it's pretty fast moving. It's only turn 2. Also, right here you can see the headquarters for the German formation is withdrawn from this position previously behind the stone wall. He's now taken up refuge here where he's at closer distance to the unit's commander, this Panzergrenadier unit, this platoon. In addition, the Germans did bring on some more immediate reserve units right here. They brought in some Rad-8s, 8 Rads right there. Basically with the recon elements, which are pretty much ineffective in this battle, at least for their ability to recon. They did move up towards this objective to maybe secure it in following turns. Next turn is turn 3, and that's when the Americans can start rolling for reserves. And if they come on, they can come on in this zone right here. In fact, this is where they have to come on, right next to this objective. So that should be interesting. So this is the situation, my friends. You can see right there in the center, there is a ranged in marker. See if the Americans want to take another shot at it in turn 3. Really pulverize those dug-in German infantry. And these infantry, by the way, the Germans did take a couple losses as well from that bombardment earlier. So heading in turn 3, folks. Stay tuned. I just finished turn 3 for both sides. Again, the Americans go first. During the German turn, the Germans brought on 1 unit of reinforcements, unfortunately. They rolled 3 dice, but only got 1 on. Actually, they failed all 3 dice to bring them on. They needed 5s. But the minimum you can bring on if you roll 3 dice is 1 unit. So they chose to bring on this unit of Panzer Grenadiers, which have an attachment of heavy machine gun, MG42. They're hustling up into position. They made a dash. These 8 rads here, they moved up from their previous position to take this objective. They are holding it now. Now remember, the Americans will be bringing reinforcements on somewhere in this sector. Probably going to jump on that objective. Unfortunately, the Americans didn't bring on any troops in their turn, which is turn 3. That's when they begin. It's delayed reserves. They roll 1 dice starting on turn 3, adding an extra dice in every turn following. They need 5s to bring on a unit. And each 5 is a unit, and they failed to get a unit. The Germans did deploy a unit that was on ambush. That was their Pak 40s. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. You can see one of them right here, and the other one is on the other side of this tree. You can barely see him. He's right there. He actually has a side shot on these Shermans. During the American turn, the Americans assaulted the German mortar position that was located here. They were dug in. They overtook it with the Shermans. That unit of mortars is gone. But they did expose themselves to a nice little Pak 40 ambush. One of the Shermans was bailed as a result. This one right here. So unfortunately, the Germans could not take out any of those Shermans. And they did get multiple side shots. Even this Pak 40 had a side shot here on that tank. But nope, there was nothing taking out. The Germans withdrew their HQ a little bit. They are SMG teams. They fell back a little bit. Range is pretty poor. They don't have any targets. Not going to be effective. I think they have Panzerknackers as well if they get in close. So if that happens, they are ready in the close assault phase. Meantime, this platoon up here is still in good spirits. It's holding in its position of being dug in. It's no longer pinned. The Americans are no longer pinned either with their infantry platoon. They are advancing, getting their act together here. They're all one big unit now. They're not broken up like they have been previously. These guys up in the woods moved up here. They're all in command now. As you can see, the smoke that was obscuring this observation team is now gone. Hopefully the M7's priests can get some shots in, some bombardments next turn. Yeah, they don't have to worry about any artillery or smoke coming on them, since the only artillery the Germans had was their mortars, and they're gone. And down here, the Panzer IV has decided to vacate this hilly position here and move up to here. They did a dash. Basically, they're trying to move up in support of this area here. Again, the Americans will be coming on here, so they're kind of sealing up their position. One more unit of reserve for the Germans. That is a gepanzerte platoon. And they're half tracks. Ideally, I want to bring them up on this road. I didn't during this turn because in their half tracks they would have to move off-road to get past this gun position. They'd have to move around them. So hopefully I can get that gun out of the way and then take advantage of that road movement rate and bring them up here in this area to really secure this objective. So there we go, folks. That is those 2 turns, the American and the German. Turn 3 is done. We're going into turn 4. Stay tuned. Let's see what happens. Here we are again. Finished turn 4. Americans were up first. They did put down an artillery bombardment here. They did range in on the first attempt. Failed to hit anything, so that's unfortunate for the M7s. Other than that, they really didn't do much. They did put some fire down on these Panzer Grenadiers. who are still holding out. They're dug in. They're down to 4 teams, however. But they're still in good spirits. I think they need at least 3 before they have to make some tests. Over here, the Shermans basically tried to get on the flank of these Pak-40s, but it was all for naught. They were unable to do any damage to the Pak-40s. You can see I'll zoom in a little bit here so you can see with the action. You can see where I'm talking. However, these Pak-40s are deployed from ambush, and that means they're dug in. They're in foxholes. So they have bulletproof cover regardless. The Shermans did put down some fire. They were ineffective. Didn't do anything to that Pak-40. The second Pak-40, which is out of command distance, this is the unit command team, by the way, did maneuver in such a way to allow the half-tracks up here for the Germans. The Germans did bring in their Gepanzerte, which are still in their half-tracks. They did a dash move along the road and got into that position. But I did have to actually maneuver him in such a way that they could pass freely. So he basically remained in place. He is no longer dug in, but he is watching the road in case those Shermans do decide to come around on that side. So that's the situation. In return, the Pak-40s did manage to bail the unit leader of these Shermans, so that tank is bailed. Over here, zoom out a little bit, sorry about that. You can see the Germans did manage to bring in, well, I mentioned that earlier, they brought in their Gepanzerte. Outside of that, they did form up, get these Panzer Grenadiers up close to the objective. They'll probably dig in the next turn. And the 8 Rads did move back behind some cover. They're on high ground, however, a little bit vulnerable to the rear. That's about it. And the Panzer IVs moved up to here. They used the cross here order to get over that wall, so that was kind of cool. I don't want to push them too far ahead. They just got a nice killing zone. And those Americans do come on the board in this edge. At least they have a line of fire to something that might be following behind. So Germans got a pretty good position right here. They're holding their own against the attacking Americans. It's unfortunate, but the Americans just can't get their reserves onto the board. Now, this game lasts at least 6 turns. You cannot win the game in less than 6 turns. So it's not a big threat at the moment. However, the Germans are still dug in. They're totally in control of the objectives. They have not won outright. As long as there's an American team within 16 inches of, I think it's 16, either 14 or 16. I think it's 16. Within 16 inches of one of these 2 objectives, the Germans cannot claim a victory. And right now the Germans are being very defensive, holding their ground, digging in. We'll see what happens next. The Americans are up at the top of turn 5. See if they get their reinforcements. Again, they have 3 units to bring on. They've got a armored infantry platoon, as well as these guys, a little Stuart platoon. So yeah, I'm correct myself there. There's only 2 units they have to bring on, not 3. So we'll see what happens. All right, folks, going into turn 5, the Americans are up. Okay, folks, finished turn 5. The Americans started it off. Boy, they surprised the Germans. Not only bringing in 1 of the reserve units, but both of them. That's what they had waiting in reserve. This unit of armored infantry came on in this location. And these Stuarts also came on, managed to get to this position here. They do have concealment behind a wall, just beyond this pine tree. You can't really see it. These 2 are in concealment. And these 2 Stuarts, in fact, put some fire down on the A-Rads. Up here, bailed this one. This second one, the leader, and this 8-Rad, did a move order. I believe it was Blitz trying to get behind this ridge here. He couldn't quite make it. It's as far as he got. He put some return fire down on the Stuarts, ineffective, and that was that. The other 2 Stuarts on the other side of this pine tree put down some effective MG fire. And the Americans themselves, the infantry, also put down some effective fire. You can see they have 2 machine guns right there, putting down some fire. This German Panzer Grenadier unit was pinned as a result, managed to unpin in its turn, and also dig in around the objective to make it even harder for the Americans to take it. In addition, Panzer IVs, way down here, decided to cross the hedges and the walls. 2 of them got hung up. couldn't quite keep up with the leader, which is right there, and one of the other Panzer IVs. They did put down some effective fire, though, most of it MG fire, and took out a total of, I think, 3 teams in all from the American platoon was taken out by the combined efforts of the infantry and the Panzer IVs. So that was the situation on this side of the battle. If you look more towards the center here, you can see that the Panzer have disembarked from their half tracks and pretty much spread out along the hedges here. One team is up here behind this boulder. It has fire for bulletproof cover from this direction. Not bad. They're getting ready to dig in. Yeah, the Germans are in pretty good control here. The Americans did throw down another bombardment. This was a repeat bombardment, as you can see that ranged-in markers right there. And at the time, it did cover one of these half-tracks that had some Panzer grenadiers in it, and it avoided being hit. But yeah, this one platoon of Germans is down to 2 teams left. They are in bad spirits, not good. And there's his leader team, and there's the second team right there. We have the original defenders from the start of the game. There's only 2 teams left. They've been battered by the artillery quite a bit. But anyway, the Panzer have arrived, and they've disembarked, and they're putting themselves in position to continue holding this objective. Not very good position to be in for the Americans. Down here, the Americans kind of shifted up in this direction. The remnants of this platoon with their leader are coming up in through this high vegetation, perhaps to get closer to the objective with cover. Because as you can see over here, it's pretty open. You don't want to advance in that. The only thing over here really is just some couple teams of bazookas. So this team, although they're in good, this platoon, although they're in good spirits, is pretty much whittled down to be very effective. It's going to come down to those M7s putting down some more barrage fire. We'll see what happens. And evidently those guys are way over here. Zoom in on them. I don't know how focused that is. Probably not very good. But there's the M7s right behind that barn there. Well distant from it, actually. Putting down some fire. That's the situation, folks. I'm going to go into turn 6 next. So stay tuned. The Americans are up. And from turn 6 on, we will start seeing if one side can defeat the other. That's when you look for the victory conditions. Okay, folks, going to turn 6. Turn 6 complete. Started with the Americans once again. Checking down here, you can see what happened. Not much. Americans have decided to dig in and hold on to their position until they can get some kind of advantage to assault this last final objective. So they are dug in, and they're also pinned still all throughout turn 6. The Panzer IVs did move up, got the rest of the platoon coming up, put down some fire on these Americans, dug in, which is totally ineffective. The Germans, on the other hand, they opted to go to ground, so they're gone to ground and dug in. It's going to be a tough nut to crack for the Americans. Over here, it's getting a little dark in here. Over here you can see the Stuarts kind of shifted a little bit. On the other side of that building, you cannot see him. Let me pick up the camera so you can see him over there. He's right there. We put down some effective machine gun fire on that Pack 40 located up there, which I have marked with smoke. It has been destroyed. Crew has been cut down. So that's the end of the Pack 40 there. But they also put down some devastating fire on these ARADs up here, and they are both destroyed. So they're out of the action as well. You can kind of see the devastations those Stuarts put on the ARADs right there. So they're gone for the Germans. In addition, the Pack 40s are gone. The Shermans, once again, up in these positions. They also shifted in their position. They put some more fire down on the Pack 40s and managed to take them both out. So Pack 40s are also gone for the Germans. Looking toward the center, it's looking kind of grim. The M7 priests put down another bombardment. It was totally ineffective, which was unusual. However, you'll notice that the Panzer Grenadiers that were dug in up here originally are gone. So that's another platoon, another unit for the Germans that's decided to quit the fight. They left their foxholes and went to the rear. The only defenders at the moment in this objective zone for the Germans is the Gepanzerte Grenadiers, who have dismounted, of course, and their half tracks have taken up some new positions. This one over here is kind of covering this advance. Yeah. And in addition, these Panzer Grenadiers, or their Gepanzerte, have decided to go to ground as well. So they didn't do any shooting. So they failed to dig in, unfortunately. So that's the situation here, folks. Of course, the M7's in the background, still putting down some fire, although it was ineffective this time. So that's the situation, folks. We're going into turn 7 next, and it's anybody's game. Anybody can win this battle, although the Germans have taken quite a beating turn 6. So we're going to turn 7, folks, starting up with the Americans. All the models are on the board. All the units are deployed, except for those that ran off and gave up the fight for the Germans. They've lost 1, 2, 3 units. Their formation is still in good spirits, though. I think they have at least 3. They got the Panzer IVs. They've got the Gepanzerte, which have dismounted, and a third one somewhere. Where is it? Oh yeah, the Panzer Grenadiers over here, which are dug in. So we'll see what the Americans can do to win this battle. Turn 7 coming up. Here we are, folks. Turn 7. Again, starting off with the Americans once again. It was pretty decisive, and you can see a lot going on here. Take a look at these Shermans over here during the Americans' turn. They saw a weakness in the defenses of the Germans, and that was this area right here. If you remember, the Pak-40s were kind of protecting that vulnerable left side of the German line here. And once they were taken out, the Shermans quickly jumped the hedges, well, moved through the hedges, and got a position to shoot on the road. And the exposed Panzer Grenadiers, or rather the Gepanzerte, were basically gunned down with MG fire. It was not pretty. The Stuarts likewise saw the vulnerability, moved up 3 of their Stuarts in this position here. There's 2 right here, and 1 up here, which is now ablaze, and they also opened up and did some devastation to those Gepanzerte. And basically, they wiped out the remnants of the Gepanzerte, and their attached 251 half tracks basically left. They were taken from the battlefield because their main unit was destroyed. Was not pretty, my friends. And also here, the headquarters unit was basically 2 teams, including the formation commander, took some hits from the priests. You can see there's a little range-in marker right there, killing one of the 2 teams. The HQ team survived, and it is now moved into this position. It has concealment. It's right there next to the telephone pole. I don't know if you can see that right there. But he's the only one holding on, or contesting rather, this objective. So the Americans cannot win in the next turn because he's there. He's not an independent team. He's a headquarters team. So he can take and hold objectives just like any other team in the game. Back out here again. And that was the situation there. The Germans really had no way of responding to that. As you can see down here, these American troops down here have decided to go to ground. They are also pinned. They did not rally. They are dug in, however. Same thing with the Germans, the Panzer Grenadiers. They are also gone to ground and dug in. You'll see the Panzer IVs have kind of split their unit. There's 2 there, including the commander of the unit. There's 2 over there, one hidden by that yellow tree. He's right there. Shift over there, you can see him. They basically moved up. One of them crossed, trying to get into a position to contest this objective or help the formation's HQ out. If they lose that HQ, they're in big trouble. That objective can be taken by the Americans. So they did move up, took some shots, ineffective against the concealed infantry, which are also dug in. Americans up there, right in there, and that's the situation. Those Americans are dug in all across as well. Over here they're dug in. They've got their mortars back here, which have been popping away some shots. In fact, I think he even took a shot at the HQ, German HQ. Don't remember. But anyway, that's the situation, folks. The Americans are in a very strong position all of a sudden. This is one of the reasons I love Flames of War. I was just saying to myself about turn 5, boy, this is looking like a lopsided battle. But sure enough, in true tradition of Flames of War, it turned around just like that. Now the Americans are in sight of getting a victory. So we're going to go to turn 7, or I'm going to go to turn 7. I'm playing this solo. We're going to see what happens. Americans are going to try and knock out the rest of the Germans here defending this objective, I imagine. Try and claim victory in the next turn. Or at least prevent the Germans from taking a victory. That's going to be a tough one for the Germans. Okay, folks, going to turn 8 next. Stay tuned. There's something interesting about the new Flames of War. I'll throw this into the video. But at this point, I'm going into turn 8, and there's a distinction between what's termed support units and basically your combat units and heavy weapons units. The support units don't prevent you from being defeated in terms of numbers. Basically, if you have less than 2 units left on the table, your force is destroyed. Now, you don't count any units that are support. Very interesting. Like, for instance, with the Germans here, their situation is very precarious. They only have, at the moment, 2 units left because everything's been pretty much destroyed, not counting the support units. Now, the Panzer IVs are support, so they can't prevent me from losing the battle just by being alive on the tabletop. And if they're destroyed, it really has no effect either. The only units I have left is my headquarters unit for the Germans, which is down to 1 team, and this Panzer Grenadier unit. Now, the only other units that counted towards my formation was my 2nd Panzer Grenadier unit, and I believe the Pak 40s. And the mortars, if you remember earlier on, they were down here. They were part of the formation. Everything else was a support unit. And that was basically the 8 Rads and the Panzer IVs. The Gepanzerta was support, so their destruction didn't matter in terms of the morale of my formation. So that's pretty interesting. And that's the situation for the Germans. It's even worse than expected. The Americans, they're actually doing pretty good. They still have the main units they have to pay attention to and keep from losing their infantry, basically, since it's an armored infantry company, basically, the formation. And that's these infantry down here, this armored infantry platoon, this 2nd armored infantry platoon up there in the top corner. And also, I believe, the tanks wouldn't count. They're support, I believe, the Stuarts and the Shermans. And what else? And the M7s, the priests, they're support. So yeah, I think you kind of get the idea. So you got to pay attention in version 4 in terms of when your army is broken, you basically lose the battle. So the Germans are down to 2 units, and one of them is down to 1 team. So even worse. Okay, friends, we're going into turn 8. Americans are up. See if they can finish off the Germans at this point. Okay, 8 turns complete. Went through the Americans' turn. Let's see what they did. Basically, they made an all-out push on that central objective up there to not only hold on to it, but to also make a rush on the enemy HQ unit, which was only 1 team strong, basically the German formation commander. They moved up their Shermans. They moved up their Stuarts, formed a line. You can't really see them from here. Let's take a look. There they are. And they moved up at least 2 teams from that platoon of armored infantry as well. So let me move up there, get a look. There we go. That's a little better. Now you can see. Right where that little tuft of smoke is, that's where the German formation commander was, as you can see. Shermans took their shots, MG fire, and they cut him down. The German HQ unit was destroyed, and that was a key unit to lose for the Germans. Basically, it put them at only 1 unit remaining, 1 core unit in their formation, which means when their turn starts, when they check to see if the formation last stand check, it's called, formation last stand, they lose automatically. They only had 1 unit left. So that was it, folks. Americans were kind of conservative, but they threw everything at that 1 unit, took him out, and going into the Germans' turn, they lost the battle. They decided to withdraw from the fight. They did take a shot with this bazooka here, just for giggles, on this approaching Panzer IV with a bazooka. Missed. And that was it, folks. Let's take another look here. There's the remnants of the Panzer IVs on the other side. Dug in Americans and dug in Germans. Got on the ground, both sides. So that objective wasn't going anywhere. Everything came down to this objective. Everything came down to taking out the last unit of the Germans. It's pretty interesting. I was playing this, I totally forgot about the formation last stand rule. All those support units they took in their formation basically don't count towards formation last stand. I mean, whether or not they're destroyed really has no impact on whether or not they lose the battle. It's just those core units, and in this case it was the 2 Panzer Grenadier units, and I believe the Pak 40s. What else? Is that it? I believe that was it. Everything else was support units, so they don't count. Quite interesting. So there you go, folks. 8 turns in all, and like I said before, just like almost all the games I've played of Flames of War, it could go either way. It's a game that you literally have to stick with to the end, because you never know. It could turn around on you. Really good fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed that formation last stand rule. I like that. I know a lot of people that have been looking at the rules, perhaps didn't play yet. They say, it's fight to the death game now. You know, it's not really realistic. It's not really cool. But that's not really the case, because support units, I mean, they just basically don't count. Obviously, looking at this, we didn't fight to the last end. We still had a platoon of tanks on the table. Of course, there was a platoon of Panzer Grenadiers still on the table. That's still quite a bit. A lot of powerful stuff. But of course, the Germans did take a lot of losses. They lost their 8 Rads, they lost their Pak 40s, they lost their Gepanzerte platoon entirely. Points-wise, this was a stunning victory for the Americans. That's the best you can get. Points were 8-1, so it'll be a 8-1 victory, stunning victory for the Americans. Really enjoyed it, folks. It was really fun. The game plays a lot faster than it did. All those little hang-ups that occurred in 3rd edition, like in assault phase, even artillery is a lot more smoother. Easy to remember. It just played much faster. Made more sense. Hit allocation makes a lot of sense. It works really well. A couple little issues I had, but they're things that I've had from 3rd edition as well, and little minor things that deal with hit allocation and another couple areas, but nothing major, things that I can deal with if I sit down and read the rules a little bit better. But I loved it. It was great. I plan to play a lot more of Flames of War V4. Hopefully I'll get some live plays in with the guys and the tabletop commanders. Good game. I think this game would play with even smaller battles. Possibly even 500 points. Sure it would. I think it's a much more maneuverable tactical game. The fact that the command control distances are a little bit different than V4, and that you can literally break up platoons and have them moving independently of each other. Although those that are not close to the unit HQ will suffer, they can make a tactical move, but if they do tactical move, they're going to suffer a +1 penalty when they shoot. If they remain in place, they don't suffer that penalty, and of course they get their full rate of fire. So that's cool. There's a lot more maneuvering going on, so it's another reason why you could play smaller battles quite effectively. Really enjoy that. So there you go, folks. Very fun. 8 turns. Breakthrough scenario. I think I played Breakthrough in my last BatRep for Flames of War V4. Good stuff. Not one of my favorite scenarios. It's definitely challenging and interesting, actually. But, good stuff overall. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it gives you some idea of the flow of the game. I would have liked to got a little bit more detailed in the game mechanics, but there's a lot of people on YouTube making videos for that kind of thing, so I don't know what the point would be. But that's that. I hope you enjoyed, folks. I'm going to put these videos together, put it up for you guys to watch later on today. I hope you enjoyed. Any comments, let me know. Any questions, ask away. I'm always available to answer as best I can anyway. So hopefully I'll get another battle in soon, maybe next week, and be another BatRep, of course. Like I said, I do love Flames of War, and I tend to be playing V4 for quite a long time. It is my #1 favorite game, at least for World War II. It's just plain fun. Very dramatic and thematic in the game. It's back and forth. You get a lot of heroics going on the tabletop, and it's just good fun. Really enjoy it. Get a few last views of the tabletop here. Last final push on the objective. I did incidentally try and dig in those Panzers that disembarked from the half tracks, but they failed. I could have made all the difference in the world right here. The priests came in. They were effective, especially early in the game as well as late in the game. Kind of in between, they didn't do so well. Pack 40s, they were put in ambush. I didn't want to reveal them over here, but when you reveal them, they have to be revealed and placed within your deployment zones, and I forgot about that. I was being smart, of course, thinking I could put them in this woods or something and ambush any enemy coming up this way. Would have took out his Stuarts, that's for sure. Didn't happen. This was a scary situation. American tried to make a little flank attack, heading towards the objective, and got ambushed by some Panzer IVs coming on way too early. Turn 1, I believe, for the Germans. They didn't expect that. So there you go, folks. That's it. Once again, I love my Stuarts. They prove their worth. Good stuff. All right, folks. Take care. I'll see you again. I hope you enjoyed. Take care.